Spider, spider, here come spiders, CFL's red zone rule. Spider's back! The reason I haven't got my intro song part up at the beginning is because I wanted to get right into this session, because this session's all going to be about Touchdown Atlantic at St. Mary's in Halifax. Okay, last weekend. Okay? Alright, so that's what we're going to have featured on this show, and I'm going to follow up with another show right after. I'll tell you at the end what that's going to be about, okay? So it's a little foggy here. Humidity is really, really high here. I can't even breathe. We had another massive thunderstorm, rainstorm, where we're supposed to get up to 100 millimeters of rain again. It probably would have floods. Actually, some parts of the city flooded again, but nothing like our major floods and catastrophe that happened here. Disaster. A few weeks ago before Touchdown Atlantic, so I can only pray and like for the people that passed away, for them that drowned, and the people that lost their homes, and the fires. 150 people lost their homes, and now these floods. And then out in Windsor and Bedford was really bad. A lot of people's homes were destroyed. It's by the Sackville River. It's it's very sad what's going on, and then Trudeau's trying to politicize it and say it's all climate change, and fires are caused by humans. Floods been happening like this for hundreds of years. It trends over hundreds of years, and since Trudeau's double carbon tax. That won't even pay for probably 1/100th what it's going to cost you, seriously. Furnace oil and gas prices at the pump got up over 30%, and furnace oil prices have gone up over 40%. On top of the 22-cent tax on furnace oil, Trudeau's double carbon tax scam, he's going to make billions and billions of dollars and rob the public, which he's doing, and have people not afford to be able to eat, lose their homes, not afford to drive. I'm telling you, man, it's so bad, and that's what's happening since you brought these double carbon tax in. Prices in the pumps and at furnace oil in the summertime it skyrocketed. So that's how I can't use the word online here, but that's how bad this is. It's terrible. We're heading for a depression. This guy's got to go. We have to get him out. He's got all the networks bought off to cover his what he's doing to us, and we have to speak out. Everybody has to speak out. Anyway, let's get into the session. I don't want to get into that anymore. That's too depressing. I never dreamed I'd live in a country is what's happening right now in our city with drug pen. They're every drug tents and drug pen. They're everywhere. So they're down in Parade Square, and they're not all over that Parade, all in their public parks everywhere. So I'm sure Saskatchewan and Toronto are not people that came into Halifax. When they saw that, they must have said, "What a disgusting place!" And I can't blame you, and because they have ruined our city and ruined our country, and we have to do something about it. We have to stop it. We have to get them out. Federally, we got Kim Houston in here now, but they're the media's all trying to do a number on him, and they're blaming him on all these so-called homeless, and they're all druggies and criminals in all these drug tent cities, in our intersections all over the place, breaking into businesses everywhere, breaking into people's homes and everything. They have destroyed our capital, beautiful city, and I apologize to the people from Saskatchewan and Toronto that came down and spent money, had to see this. What they are doing, and I'm going to get into some of that, what's going to happen with the CFL franchise, potential franchise in Halifax versus Mayor Savage and what he's doing, and the city council to our city, and he can have a CPL team. We're going to get into that in a sec, but what I wanted to get into right now is what Rob Peterson was on TSN 1290, and when he said about what's going on, what he's hearing, what's going on with Halifax, with a potential CFL 10th franchise after Touchdown Atlantic last week in Halifax at St. Mary's. So here it is.
To the Rod Peterson Show. One more CFL question for you. Just on Touchdown Atlantic. You touched on it a little bit earlier from a football perspective, but always plugged in. When or if do we get a 10th team in the CFL, and is it going to be in Halifax?
Well, I've heard everything, so I don't know. I mean, I'm at a point, guys, and I don't want to be a negative Nelson. You've known me a long time, AJ. I'm not that. But I kind of tuned out everything I've heard. I've heard, and these from what I've seen from reputable sources, that Quebec City's far closer to getting a pro franchise in a stadium before Halifax is. And then, of course, the CFL just left Halifax, but when the circus left town, there was stories coming out of there that they're going to announce a team this winter. And they're going to play out of a temporary portable stadium in Halifax. These are the things that I'm hearing. But I'm sorry, and I don't say this lightly, and I don't mean to hurt feelings, but I'm kind of done with these pontifications of Randy Ambrosie. And it finished me with the XFL thing in 2020 when they scrubbed the season, and he said, we're talking about talking with the XFL, which ended up being a massive exercise in chasing our tail and a wild goose chase. And if Randy's goal there was to get us talking about something else other than the fact they scrapped the season, then bravo, Randy, you won. But that was the last incident for me of crying wolf, that I'm going to pay attention to anything that he says. We're real close. We're real close. Okay, call me when you kick off in the first week, and I'll be there at the 55-yard line. Until then, I'm not going to believe it until I see something. Fair?
Absolutely fair. No, I'm in the same boat, and to me, I feel like his legacy almost depends on it now, because it's a bit of a checkered legacy. I think he came in and did a lot of good things, but the global thing hasn't been a roaring success. And look, this league, I feel like at least there's stability in ownership. They've probably never had a better group of 9 owners in terms of deep pockets, so that's a good thing. But he's overpromised, and if they underdeliver, I feel like his legacy is going to suffer, and that's going to depend on whether we get a 10th team in the Canadian Football League.
That's a great question, and to talk about Ambrosie's legacy probably isn't a worthwhile conversation until a couple of years after he's gone.
Yeah.
Whenever that is. I mean, Mark Cohen, great friend of mine, we were really close, and he was the commissioner from 07 to 2014, and that was the start of your tenure, AJ. What a great legacy he had. All these new stadiums, refurbished stadium in Ottawa, the return of pro football in Ottawa. Everything was great under Cohen. The new stadiums, the stadiums were packed, the new TV deal. It's pretty cut and dry. That's what I think of Mark Cohen's legacy. Jeffrey Orch we won't talk about. And now with Ambrosie, it's a little like the Halifax situation. It's crying wolf. If you announce the 10th team now, I think it's too late. I looked at the crowds across the CFL. We don't have sellouts. I don't really believe in the TV ratings. Even the attendance numbers are inflated. Is the CFL making money? I mean, I just met with the Flames last week, and we talked about, coverage with my show and their team moving into the fall. And I said, you guys don't need me. Doesn't look like you're struggling to sell tickets. And the Flames were like, no. And this is a team with a bad reputation in the market. I just said they burned everything to the ground in Calgary, yet they sell out every game. Blue Jays aren't struggling. So that argument of COVID and the economy and all the stuff that the CFL types have used since 2020, it's not affecting the other leagues. So to me, has Randy Ambrosie grown the CFL? No. And to me, that's his legacy. But he's still got the job, so he's still got time to turn it around. I just don't see that happening. Or anything that's going to make me believe that it's going to happen.
I got 3 South Florida questions for you, Roddy.
There you go.
Florida Panthers.
So I didn't want to say anything because I said everything about Randy Ambrosie, how I feel about Randy Ambrosie, and I was pretty, boisterous and somewhat, so like I call a spade, and I get upset, and I react, and there's some, I would say, a fair amount of legitimacy behind my complaints about him and his popularity and so forth, and how the CFL has gone basically down the tubes on his reign. And it's true. And everything that Rob Peterson said, I mean, people, I have to respect what he says because it's accurate. you know, like he's not trying to, and same with me. I mean, it comes to a point that, you know, like, we care about the CFL. I care about the CFL. I care about the how successful the CFL. I care about the survival of the CFL. You know, I'm a very loyal, dedicated CFL fan. That's why I come up with my CFL Red Zone rule, and I don't even watch the NFL. Okay, and so yeah, that's why I speak out like I do, and I say what I say, and I don't mean it. You may think it comes across in a derogatory sense, but I don't mean it that way. I don't mean it to be a meanful way. I get upset, so I raise my voice in frustration more than anger. I mean, it's true, like, because, like, you know, I mean, it's something simple as that. Simple as this, if you're going to sign a big long-term contract with TSN, okay, whose exclusivity has their exclusive rights to CFL games, no one else can show them, then Randy Ambrosie, I mean, if I was a commissioner, and any commissioner, not just Randy Ambrosie, you have to have in that contract that they have to show at least one game a week on CTV, and they need to show the Grey Cup on CTV, at least that in the contract, and more into the contract, that they show more games, and they show the playoff games, and I would have the playoff games in that too, and a game of a week, the CFL playoff game and the Grey Cup. I mean, you need to do that. I mean, that's just common business sense, but Randy Ambrosie couldn't do that, and he couldn't, and there's no coverage in the CFL. There's no TSN, who has exclusive rights to the CFL. They don't promote the CFL. They don't even have a show that's like CFL Week, you know, show. They last night, the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts in Calgary, they didn't even show it on their main TSN networks, like 707 here in Halifax. Can you imagine? Imagine that, and it was only on one TSN network that I could find when it started. That's unbelievable. Showing MLS soccer over when they have, like Glenn Souther just said recently, that the Toronto Argonauts have the CFL regular season games. Glenn Souther said on Sports Cage with Ballsy that their ratings are 10 times that of regular season MLS soccer games in TSN. So why are they doing that? And Rob Peters is probably right. I know that he's right in the attendance numbers. They're grossly over-exaggerated. I mean, all the stadiums are practically empty, including like Saskatchewan Roughriders is half empty. Looks half empty. So I mean, it's really gone downhill since Randy Ambrosie been commissioner. And I'm going to get in the next session what I believe why, because they had him. Too bad, even they did a pregame for Touchdown Atlantic and St. Mary's. I think they did in Wolfville last year, but this year they didn't. But they had an interview with Randy Ambrosie on TSN online. That's ridiculous. And he said they had a meeting with the Board of Governors. They want to really crank up the marketing. And they talked about a 25% increase in 24 to 50, I think 54 or 57 demographics. In viewership, that's a pretty good number. But I mean, he has to get butts in the seats. He's got to do what Mark Cohen did. He filled CFL stadiums, packed them, and he was a great salesman, and he was a great marketer, and he really sold the game. And he never would have had one-year contracts, and that's what I'm going to get into next session, because Randy Ambrosie said the league, the governors, the owners, CFL, they want to concentrate on marketing. Well, guess what? My next session is on the real reason why the CFL is going downhill and there's nobody in the stands, and their ratings are better, but they are exaggerated, like Rob Peterson said. Now I'm going to give you the real reasons why the CFL is in the state they are. Next session, it's going to be really good. But this session, I'm going to concentrate on Touchdown Atlantic in Halifax, okay, at St. Mary's last Saturday, and it was very high humidity and very muggy like it is now, but it didn't rain, thank God. But I went down at 1:30, And when the tailgate ended, and they said they're only going to allow so many people, because I had reservations in the pub. But the thing is, the pub and the Argonauts were in there, and they, with their fans and pinball thumbs, and they had a big deal in the pub, so I couldn't get in to 3:30. And I had a reservation too. I couldn't even get in. And my son was track athlete of the year, ran the 100 in 10.8 seconds at 19 years old at a St. Mary's track meet with Debbie Brown. She ran the Olympics. He was my son's coach. I couldn't even get in. So wasted a lot of time out there. They had the Grey Cup out there, and there weren't a lot of people there, not that many, because they only allowed so many in the tailgate. I don't think they wanted a big drunk or whatever, but they had a band playing, and they had food services, trucks set up and everything. That's what I should have got. Because when I ended up, I don't mind supporting St. Mary's Pub, but I ended up spending like, and it wasn't good at all. They said the Husky Burger, I didn't find it good. Sorry who found it good, but I don't know, because it was leftovers. They didn't much, but their fries were fantastic. Their sweet potato fries were fantastic. But but hey, come on, you get a beer in there for $4.75 or $4.50. It's crazy. Draft beer, and they weren't serving like frosted glasses or anything. I wish they would have, because I mean they were in a frenzy after the Argo event, and they didn't have much to offer, just a limited menu, so it wasn't good. It wasn't good service. It wasn't good. But I ended up giving them $60. That's a lot of money for a burger and fries, 2 people, a beer, and a Coke, whatever. Oh, we had some nachos. There was hardly anything on it. It was terrible, very small. Anyway, I don't mind. I give the money to the university anyway. But let's get into particulars here. What's going on? Too bad it wasn't a better game. And I think if Andrew Harris would have been there, it would have been a very close game right down the wire, because, I mean, the Argonauts' offense wasn't very good at all. I think they only had 120-some yards in passing and rushing a total maybe 200. I mean, they didn't play good at all. And believe it or not, the Saskatchewan Roughriders would find the backup quarterback, because Andrew Harris is out for the year. He had over 400 yards, what I read, unless the statistics are wrong, because statistics aren't right. And Brosey was talking about that. That's a nightmare, but I didn't even try to justify that. But anyway, so it could have been a lot better game. But the special teams for the Argonauts and their defense, they had a punt return, a big punt return for a touchdown. Link, he was great, and they had an interception for a touchdown. So I think it was Amos, I believe. But anyway, and Kelly threw for a short yardage touchdown. They were way down the end zone, and they did play well. The Toronto, they had a couple of interceptions, one for a touchdown. They had the Saskatchewan Roughriders, when the Argonauts were up 21-0, down the last few seconds, okay, in the last minute or so, in the second quarter, at the end of the first half, they were on the 1-yard line, and they fumbled the ball on the 1-yard line. That would have made it 21-7 with the convert, if it would have been good. And that would have been a lot better going into the second half, because the Saskatchewan Roughriders played really well in the second half. They scored a touchdown late in the game, but the Argonauts had that interception touchdown. So 31, I forget it was 31-7 or 31-10, I think, because they had a field goal. It might have been 31-13. Because they had, I think, a couple of field goals. Lothar had 2. He must have been happy about that. He's a hometown boy. He played at St. Mary's. It was great to see all the clippings of Chris Flynn. I remember being there, and Larry Utek, who coached Chris Flynn, and Chris Flynn. And I knew Larry Utek. He was a great guy. I met him. He's a great guy. It's too bad that he passed ALS, but he was a great guy, a great coach. He played with the Montreal Alouettes too. They featured that. It was really good. Rob Smithy did a good job, and Drain Ford did a very good job, and you see why they selected you to do the game. And they put up press boxes. I was there when they were putting them up. I was talking to the guys putting them up on top of like a container per box they had there. So it was pretty cool. So the stands that's over there, 7,500, would have been over 8,000 or more if they wouldn't have built that exchange off the cafeteria. That's too bad, even if they're going to build something there. But the thing is, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Listen to Rod Peterson, what's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you something you have to know. Derek Martin was on Global TV just recently in Halifax. He's the owner or the CEO of the Premier League soccer team. And by the way, they're the only ones really getting attendance. York's up for sale. They get nobody. Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who own a team in the CPL, Premier Soccer League, said that they'll be folding next year, basically said because they get nobody. Edmonton folded last year. They're not in good shape. They've only been around a few years. They have no TV contract. So they rely on the few amount of fans they get for ticket sales. I don't know how they afford to pay their players, if they afford to travel. I don't know how they're in business. And they're in shaky grounds, really. But Derek Martin's still doing a number on Mayor Savage and the city councils because he's like them, okay? And so he's in bed with them, and they're in bed with him. And he said on Global TV that they're going to build, in two months they're going to announce his 10,000 seat permanent. They're going to have, I guess, a roof and bucket seats, but it's all like scaffold. It's all like prefabricated. It's modular. It's like the 6.5. There's, basically like the St. Mary's, but they constructed there. Other than with bucket seats, I don't know how it's going to, although they do put it on a concrete slab to secure it more, but I don't know how it's going to, they're going to get water in there and plumbing. You have to have permanent washrooms, at the Wanderers grounds. But Justin Dunk was there, and he went over the Wanderers grounds and looked at the footprint there. But there's the Bengal, there's the Lancers there, the horses, and the lawn bowling, and where the kitchen party section of the Wanderers grounds is for the CPL team. And there's not a lot of room there. I don't think you could build 20,000 seats, plus for CFL modular prefabricated pop-up stadium there. So it's probably going to be $20 million or maybe a little more for their little Mickey Mouse little 10,000 seat pop-up modular stadium for the Halifax Wanderers. So that leaves it with St. Mary's. So what St. Mary's, by the way, the only way you could do anything there is with the track, and I'll get into about what they could build there in a second. But before I do that, when I was trying to get over to the pub to get my reservation with my lady, the person that was in charge is Mr. Dick. Mr. Dix is VP football operations. So I had my SPYDER CFL Red Zone Rule hat on here, by the way. All right, because I got about 6 minutes left, so I should be able to cover this. If I can't, I'll go into the other session with it. But look what happened. Here's my beautiful sweater that my son made for me that I was going to wear, my SPYDER CFL Red Zone Rule. Can you imagine this? Look at this, how beautiful it is. But the problem is it bunches all up like this when I wear it, and it caves all in. And look, there's football. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a SPYDER CFL Red Zone logo football there on the shoulders. It's amazing. And down the sleeve too, there's SPYDER CFL Red Zone Rule logo. Okay, on the sleeve there, and in the back, I got my SPYDER CFL Red Zone Rule banner. That's on my Facebook page, on my full presentation, my SPYDER CFL Red Zone Rule, the last one on my Facebook page. I can't get this straight there. So this would have been some awesome to wear, but because I told my son to do it in like a hockey style size because I want it big enough to get everything on it, and that's what screwed everything up. And it went crazy, like it buckled all up like this, caved in like this, and the arms, too much excess in the arms, so you couldn't see SPYDER CFL Red Zone Rule across the chest. I went to a tailor to see if something could be done with it. They said, like, don't touch it because it wasn't cut right, it's a mess, and so forth. And didn't say it was the fabric or the size is right, but it's the cuts and the way it was sewed together. And because it's an NHL jersey size, and it's large, not extra. I had an extra large center. I would never be able to wear that. But $90 to do what I want, so I could wear it, that it would be presentable and look good and show everything, like all my everything on it. Too much money. So I'm going to try to find somebody that's a moonlighter, like freelancers or something, and get it done. But getting back, I ran into Mr. Dick was the guy that they brought everybody over, security, they brought him over, he was in charge, and I had my Spider CFL Red Zone role. What an opportunity. So here's what I said, this will probably go into the next session, but I want to tell you everything what we talked about. So I introduced myself, and I told my son was track athlete year, that's why I'm going to get over to my reservation in the pub. He told me what was going on there. I showed him my Spider CFL Red Zone role hat. He saw it, he looked at me, and I asked him, I said, do you know what my Spider CFL Red Zone role? You know what he said? He said, yeah, Mr. Ambrosi. Send it over to him. Send it over to him. I asked him, did you review it? Did you go over it? Do you know it well? Do you know about it? He said he didn't know a lot about it. See, here's what I mean. And he was a decent guy and everything, but that was very disappointing to hear. So they never jumped into this at all, and never really gave it the time of day. And I wasn't rude or anything to him or anything like that, but I was just very disappointed when he's told me that, and I said, well, I'll resend it to you. And I was basically going over my rule with him somewhat, and I told him that it's tailor-made for CFL 3-down football, and it's a natural stare every single game to stare in the CFL right in the eye. And I told him about the three prominent sports figures that endorsed it, and I'm going to tell you more into the next session because you got to hear it. I'm going to tell you everything I told him, because I think something good could come out of this. So, so what we're going to do is, I think this is a very important session. Sorry for the little bit of rant at the start, but things are on my chest these days, and I'm sorry that it took so long to get back on set, but things been going on, and it's summer and so forth, and so, but I am back, and I'm going to carry on the conversation with Mr. Dick, okay, the VP of Football Operations on my CFL Red Zone role. It actually, I couldn't believe that was the best part of what happened there. And I'll tell you why in a few seconds, because I think something really good's going to come out of this, because we had a man-to-man talk, and it was a good conversation, and I'll tell you exactly what I said and what was said in a few seconds. We're counting down the 27-18, so you see my Touchdown Atlantic Cats original St. Mary's ones, Tiger Cats exhibition game at St. Mary's.